Hi and welcome to Whisky Shared. In this episode I'll be telling you how I got into whisky. Right, so before I tell you how I got into whisky, why not hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of future videos I make. So it all started in August 2018 when my eldest son showed me a whisky video by the YouTuber PewDiePie. At the time, I didn't even know who PewDiePie was. I'd heard the name, I knew he was a YouTuber, I had no idea what he did or anything about him. And my son showed me this video. It was about Japanese whiskey. If you haven't seen that video before, I'll put a link up here so you can go and view it. But yeah, it piqued my interest. I was interested by what he had to say about whiskey. He made it sound exciting and interesting, and quite tasty. And above all, I'd not actually heard of Japanese whiskey. It was a first for me. So as a drinker of brandy and cognac, mainly mixed, not neat, this video definitely piqued my interest, and went straight on the internet, googling Japanese whiskey, and yeah, I found out that it was quite expensive. But it didn't totally deter me, because a little while after I was heading to France and decided to pick up a bottle at the duty free. So what did I get? I got a bottle of Suntory, the Chita. It's one of their entry-level single grain whiskies. It's aged in ex-bourbon, ex-sherry and even wine casks. And this single malt, I had no idea what it would taste like at the time, but I was hoping for big things. So when I came back to the UK, I opened it, and with my 18-year-old son at the time, I made him try it as well, so we could both see what the fuss was about. But, so we had a benchmark. I did have a bottle of cheap whiskey that had been given to me by my mother-in-law, which was Tesco Special Reserve 3-year-old Scotch whiskey. So this isn't the actual whiskey, that's gone a long time ago, but I bought another bottle of this just so I can taste test these two together to give you an idea of what it felt like when I tested Japanese whiskey for the first time against probably typical Scotch whiskey that I'd probably drunk many times before, but a whiskey like this would typically have been mixed with Coke by myself. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to put these in a glass. We can then see how things have changed. I've drunk a lot of whiskies, and my palate has definitely developed in the last year, so we'll see what the difference is. On to the whiskey. Right, so drinking spirits for me, neat, was a pretty new experience. Yeah, it's not something I'd ever enjoyed in the past, and it was definitely something that I didn't think I could get used to. You see people drinking whiskey neat all the time, and yeah, I just didn't know what to expect. I suppose I was expecting this strong alcoholic liquid to just burn my throat and taste of nothing but oaky whiskey, I suppose. So what I'll do is I'll nose each of these and sort of tell you what I can tell you about now, and I'll try and remember what I said about them to my son at the time, and we'll see how they compare, and then I'll taste them and give you some feedback on the flavours, and then yeah, let's see what this is like. So I started with the Chita first a year ago, because obviously we cracked it open. We didn't know what we were doing, but we thought we'd give it a go and see what it tasted like. Right, you definitely get the sherry on the nose with this. Definitely smells like there is a wine cask influence, but it's very light and floral, very honeyed. It's a very light smelling liquid, but at the time, a year ago, I didn't really know what I was smelling and probably went straight to the palate, if I remember rightly. There is a bit of alcohol vapour, being a grain whisky, that's quite common. Yeah, but it does smell quite sweet and floral. So let's see how that compares to the 3-year-old Tesco Special Reserve blended Scotch whisky. It says it's oak aged, matured in oak casks, distilled, aged and blended in Scotland. Minimum 3 years old. So let's give this a go on the nose. Right, instantly, it does smell cheap. There's that sort of damp wood. There is a toffee sweetness though on the nose with this one. There's almost a hint of peat or smoke as well. But it smells, it's difficult to say. It smells cheap. I know that because obviously it is a cheap whisky. I've nosed and tasted over 100 whiskies in the last year, and that just smells, I don't know, it almost smells of reminds me of a cleaning chemical in a way. Maybe like a bit of shoe polish. But I would guess that the typical customer for this type of cheap blended whisky is somebody who is going to mix it in Coke or drink it quite quickly neat. It isn't the type of whisky to be savoured. So let's try the Chita on the palate. Yeah, it's poles apart. As PewDiePie would say, very nice. It's yeah, it's very sweet, floral, honeyed, almost like an Irish whiskey. There is that sort of honey vanilla sweetness to it, but on the finish there's like a drying sort of tannins, like wood tannins, that sort of light oakiness. It's quite fresh. It's not too dry on the palate. It's a really nice dram. I'm gonna have another sip of this. Very sweet indeed. It definitely reminds me of an Irish whiskey, that sweetness. This one's bottled at 43%, and even though it's 43%, and obviously I'm used to drinking whiskey neat now, it's not too strong on the palate. It doesn't need water. But I must admit, when I first started going through this bottle, I found I needed to add water. Obviously my palate has developed, but it did take a bit of water to get it to that sweet spot for me. But I can quite happily drink that neat now. So we went onto the Special Reserve next as a comparison, because obviously, having tried what we thought was clearly some spectacular Japanese whiskey, obviously no benchmark, we needed to know how that really compared to, you know, what we may usually drink, or maybe what people would normally drink who aren't typical whiskey drinkers. So yeah, we poured this and tried this next. So let's see what this tastes like now. I must admit, it's not as offensive as I remembered. It's very smooth. It's definitely oaky, a sort of charred oak. There is a hint of smoke in there. There's no real burn to it, but it does taste like a very simple oaky whiskey. I have completely different memories of this from a year ago. This whiskey, and I think my son commented that it tasted like burnt wood. He wasn't impressed at all, although he did actually quite like the Chita. But it's nothing special. The Special Reserve, yeah, it's nothing special. But the whiskey in this is aimed at a completely different customer. You know, a bottle of this is typically retail price a third of the price of this. You know, when you've got a 70 centilitre bottle of this, it's a third of the price of the Chita. They are for different markets. Obviously this is, you know, the Chita's slightly inflated for our market, but they are aimed at a completely different customer. This definitely isn't as nasty as I remembered, but I wouldn't recommend going out and buying some. If you've never had Japanese whiskey, there are better whiskies than the Chita, and similar sort of money. You don't have to spend more than £40–50 to get a good entry-level Japanese whiskey. So yeah, it's good to go back to these and try them side by side, but yeah, completely different experience, and I'm so glad I got into whiskey. So I'll sign off with the Chita. Launcher. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not give it a like or a comment, and please consider subscribing for more videos like this.